welcome everyone. Let us get started with our today's presentation. So today is the first presentation on aphasia webinar series that has happened. One second, I'll just it's not audible.
Hello all, good afternoon. Can I share my slide? Hello?
Ma'am, one second. There's some problem with my audio. I'll just fix it.
I'm sorry with this poor net. I hope my slides are seen.
No, ma'am. The slides are not.
No?
No. Yeah. Now, ma'am, we can see that.
Okay. So good, we have good audience. So in the support of Aphasia Awareness Month, we thought to start with some important area of understanding, assessment and intervention of progressive aphasias. I think they're less explored because many of the speech pathologists and even neuro rehab professionals like neuropsychologists, OTs are not familiar because they have very poor exposure to the progressive aphasias. They are very difficult to pick up because they don't come so easy to many neurologists. Because first early phase when they have a word retrieval deficits or a mild forgetfulness, in Indian scenario like साठी बुद्धी नाठी विसरतोय जाऊन दे असं होतं वयामानाने is what people say, and then they come late. Sometimes if the patient has a cognitive reserve which is very good, and when they have been very communicative, very active, then they pick up early. They even get to neurologist and say that something is going wrong. However, with the neurologist training, with the cognitive neurological aspects, many neurologists in their busy schedule, because the country has very less neurological support in terms of super specialization, they don't get to spend too much of time on assessing cognition and communication. So in the pure MMSC, if that is what is administered on many PPAs, if they are of good cognitive reserve, they are not picked up. So it's important that it's good to have a team of speech pathologists, very well trained in neurological intervention of cognition communication, and importantly understanding how the disease is progressing. Is it an early stage? Is it a typical mid stage of language variant? So we would try to give you understanding of PPA, how do you classify, and a one case in detail. Okay, so I know it's only an hour and I can go on talking and talking on PPAs and dementia rehabilitation. So we will see how I juxtapose the sides and try to give my gist. Okay, I'm just putting my video off so the net becomes better. Yeah, should we start?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, your introduction is left, so you can.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
I know my audio, ma'am. I'll type it down in the chat section, ma'am.
Yeah. So I don't think so I'll need an introduction. I'm Sonal Vijay Chitnis. I love to talk about brain health, stroke, aphasia, cognition, dementia, and all the SLPs who have seen me actively involved in advocacy. The students mostly here of Alia Varjang, Nair, my students, Bharati Vidyapit, and I'm sure few of the South and Aish and other students also, because I try my best to go teach, explore board of cognitive neurosciences, and then see how people can get somewhere motivated to take up cognitive communication rehabilitation, which is really lacking in Indian scenario, because we have a lot of patients who are aging, who are at risk of developing degenerative disorders. There are lots of dementia I think I missed my important slide. But I have 1 minute. So my disclaimer and the outline slide is missing. Pardon. Uh, I don't receive any honorarium for this presentation, my advocacy work. I'm recently have taken up a coordinator work, and we have got approval of special interest group of clinical aphasiology in Indian Speech Language Hearing Association. I'm also volunteer of Aphasia Association of India and Indian Federation of Neurorehabilitation, Indian Academy of Neurology of Aphasiology subsection. So that's what I try my best to do, a volunteer work. And my disclaimer would be there are lots of unknowns in our field of ocean of cognitive neurosciences and rehabilitation. There are lots of knowns where they could be really needing to be known and unknowns ocean to be explored in order to become a expert. And we all are learning. Each patient is different in the clinical scenario of Indian biodiverse and multilingual scenario, literate, illiterate, or poor literate scenario, we still fall short of understanding diagnostic tools, batteries. So I'm not an expert, but I'm trying to be in terms of going to be helping you understand what I have learned from my experience. Okay, so I would try to explain bit of progressive aphasia and dementia, and importantly, few variants of PPA. How would you be able to tap them, how you will be able to understand and address and assess them in Indian scenario. Okay, so what is primary progressive aphasia? This term was coined by Mesolum in 1982, where he came in neurology practice of his clinic that some patients whom he has seen did not have a typical neurological disorder like stroke or head injury or any observed obvious neurological disorder except the complaint of difficulty in getting correct words. Slowly language was getting deteriorated, so that was a dissolution of language, and he termed it, coined it as progressive aphasia, because the primary language loss was the reason, was the complaint, and the person did not have any other history. So the primary progressive aphasia came in picture. Later, he uh, coined it as the language-based dementias. So Mesolum is a pioneering cognitive neurologist. Later, Andrew Curtis also has done great research on PPAs. We have John Hodges, Thomas Bach, Bruce Lipton, and Michael Paradis, many important cognitive neurologists talking and explaining, working on the PPAs, its assessment and degeneration. From the Indian perspective, my mentor and my co-guide, Dr. Suvarna Alladi, I have learned a lot from her. Cognition and the communication. My journey of PPA starts from NIMS when I was an intern there, and my dissertation. So Dr. Alladi has done a pioneering work in Indian PPA and the dementia-related disorders identification, assessment, and intervention at Hyderabad and currently in Neemans. So the Alladi group has come up with good amount of batteries which can pick up the language, cognition, communication, and PPA. Indian scenario, yes, Professor Pauranik has done a lot of work in dementia as such, and we have very important pioneering person. I'm sorry to forget his name, Professor Mathur Nath. So he has given us a tool called Addenbrook's cognition examination. I think so in 2000, when he was in Cambridge, he has developed this tool. And the SLP in PPA was a pioneering work, was done by Dr. Annama George. Ma'am has been very talented, very passionate neuro SLP in Chitra. She has developed lots of batteries which are culturally relevant in Malayalam, English, bilingual population. And that was something which PPA history one should be knowing as a SLP, and we should be exploring and reading the literature. So PPA is neurodegenerative syndrome. It's a language variant of FTD. It affects mainly language abilities, word finding, use of language, comprehension, sentence construction, verbal praxis. It's insidious onset, it has a gradual deterioration, it is not rapidly progressive dementia. However, we do have few syndromes which can be starting or coming up like a progressive non-fluent aphasias. They would be having a rapidly progressive deterioration, like cognitive, like CBS, which can have PNFA as a starting with. Many ALS patients who come with a language dissolution like PNFA ALS or PNFA MNDs do have rapidly progressive deterioration, but we do not term them as a rapidly progressive dementia as it have not come in literature, but mostly they are insidious and slow or slowly progressive dementias. So it's important that you understand normal forgetfulness and the person with a typical decline, mild cognitive impairment. Can I have all the attendees off their mic or unmute their mic, please? Thank you. So what sorry, I got muted. So it's important to understand while assessing cognition, communication, progressive aphasias, progressive degenerative disorders, that what is normal cognition, normal forgetfulness, and what is not. So when I forget my keys and somewhere I just forget, okay, did I forget it? Did I keep it somewhere? And then after some time I recall, I don't think so. I should be called progressive aphasia. No. I shouldn't be called dementia. No. I shouldn't be called cognitive communication disorder. No. We at times don't get correct words, so we do misspell or label it wrong when we are in hurry, we are too anxious, when we are too weak. Yes, lack of concentration, somewhere grief, stress, some medication can affect our memories and cognition, and sometimes the communication also. But
हमारा
it
क्लास
is not
चलेगा कह
abnormal.
देता
Sorry, I can still hear attendees talking. Can you please mute all the attendees except me? So these minor memory loss are often called benign forgetfulness. With aging, with the structural and functional neuronal loss and neuronal changes in the brain, it is going to have the effect on your information processing, your retention of your information you learned, print awareness does not get affected, but ability to grasp the more and more information you have been either listening or reading or calculating. So that is normal aging, normal forgetfulness, normal cognitive deterioration, aging or age related cognitive decline. And it is important to understand in high cognitive reserve, highly literate, highly socially active people versus people who have a sedentary life and versus people who are illiterate. So it could be different, and one has to be understanding the age-related cognitive decline versus mild cognitive impairment versus early stage of dementia. I'm not teaching your basics of your syllabus, what you have learned in your PG or your few of the UG lectures and internship. I will try to give you a gist and what are the do's and don'ts of your understanding normal forgetfulness versus benign abnormal. Can I have my slides changed? Yes. So primary progressive aphasia is a clinical dementia syndrome characterized by gradual dissolution of language without impairment in other cognitive domain like visuospatial skills, executive functions, gross memory deficits in first year, 2 years of illness. So this was the Mesulam's definition. So if the patient has come to you only at the end of the year or 1.5 years later than the exact the deficits were emerging, he is already a typical early stage going to the mild stage dementia. So there you get to see a typical difficulty in getting names. That's a semantic memory. So this memory is not to be considered from the memory recall. So you have a phonological memory, which is supposed to be understanding that how you repeat the words, the digits, the sentences that requires a phonological memory. So verbal working memory is very important in your understanding, assessing of any person with aphasia. And with the cognitive load increasing, person may fail on your longer and longer sentences construction in terms of talking on his or on her own, constructing and formulating or writing or reading or calculation also. So it is important that the basic memory here and the cognitive functions what are talked in early first 2 years are not with much of recalling abilities, but are of word retrieval, language related, communication related cognition. So cognition has very important domain language, and in the language you have different domains to be understanding. So initially, Mesolem referred this PPA as a slowly progressive aphasia, and later it became as a PPA. Okay, so what is dementia? Dementia is an acquired persistent impairment of intellectual function where the activities of daily living might be compromised in early phase than the pre-morbid abilities of the patient with her or his occupation. Dementias, dementic syndromes, you have different causes of dementias. So degenerative, demyelination, vascular, you have autoimmune encephalitis, you have traumatic injuries, traumatic head injuries, which are severe in nature, can cause dementias, Parkinson's. They are also important dementic syndromes to understand. So we have different variants. So Alzheimer's, frontotemporal dementia, CBD, PDs are important degenerative diseases which can have, and MNDs, which can have PPA as a first manifestation of language impairment, communicative impairment, or a motoric speech cognitive related impairment. So in dementia syndromes, not always every domain is equally impaired. So you might have a asymmetrical or a heterogeneous picture of language, memory, spatial skills, emotional cognition, and the abstraction, judgment, executive functions impaired. And it is important that you understand the classification of dementia and the criteria for diagnosing dementia as ICD-10 criteria, DSM-4, DSM-5 criteria, where at least one of three domains have to be impaired. You get to see aphasia, apraxia, forgetfulness, and the ADL is getting impaired. However, in PPA, ADL is not compromised in early stages. It is more of language abilities. So progressive aphasias and related dementic syndromes, they are not called typical aphasias because they are different from a vascular aphasic territory or your epileptic aphasic territory or your tumor or traumatic focal injury based territory of cognitive communication disorder, but they are typical cognitive communication disorder. Post FTD or AD or CBS could be diagnosed. So one has to understand the social communication, social cognition, visuospatial abilities for differential diagnosis of posterior functions versus anterior functions, and importantly, verbal domain of cognition, where your repetition, fluency, reading, writing, understanding, calculation, musical abilities, and gestures are to be tested. Verbal and non-verbal communicative abilities. So while understanding PPA and its assessment, we need to understand that language learning, cognition, communication is inseparable. One has to understand the embedded network. So what do you check in PPAs? Importantly, receptive and expressive language abilities, verbal praxis, programming execution, verbal semantics at confrontation level when you have an object and you are asking someone to name what is it, what is it, what is it doing. So verb naming and noun naming has very important different roles. I see many of the SLPs don't check the verb naming but have practice of testing verbs, action naming, and the emotive names, emotive verbs importantly because they play important role in your syntax, and that could be helping you understanding differential diagnosis of PPA syndromes. Coming back to the verbal cognition, verbal executive functions. So having the vowel, consonant, word, phrase, sentence repetition task is important for your verbal executive function to be checked. and the oral agility, oral spelling, oral naming. So that could be important to understand verbal cognition. Auditory verbal working memory and learning to be tested. Like you can have a test of semantic association, which is importantly your AVLT and the CAP, PPT, or your phonological word association task. Going to the spatial cognition, where copying, drawing, writing, on dictation, writing, drawing a picture, where you can actually understand and study the spatial, visual spatial praxis, perception and construction ability. So which can help you understand the frontoparietal pathways and the posterior pathways, if they are intact or are they getting faded equally with the language or not. And very important is social cognition, social communication. So social pragmatics plays an important role, which is supposed to be tested while understanding the PPA. Okay, so what is the diagnostic criteria for PPA? So first, 2 years history of language decline, permanent language deficits of, importantly, it could be other mental functions can be preserved, may be preserved, intact ADL, no stroke, no tumor, no infection, no metabolic disturbances. That has to be somewhere importantly ruled out while understanding the PPAs. So Mesallam gave this criteria where he says onset and gradual progression of word finding, object naming, word comprehension impairment during spontaneous conversation, prepositional speech, and connected speech to be taken. You need to have that limitation of daily living activities attributed to language impairment, because many times we understand that communication ADL related aspects can be impaired in the person, but however he might not have much difficulty asking what he wants for his daily living. So that may not be impaired in early phase. Intact premorbid language function is very important to be understanding with the PPA diagnosis. Absence of significant apathy, disinhibition, or significant depression, forgetfulness of recent event, visual spatial perception, visual recognition deficits are and within 2 years are warranted as such. However, again I tell you, when patient has come to you in a later stages, you may get to see the patient is depressed, that he is not able to speak, communicate what he was earlier, he is not able to say what he is undergoing. That can cause actual catastrophe of communication related disability, when the patient is feeling that he is unable to write correct, get correct names, he is not able to be fluently communicating. So they sometimes mask with some words uses that could be seen in a patient who has come to you in a later stages. So it's important that you understand the clinical features of PPA, supposed to be aphasic features to be understanding in initial phase, and pattern of language deficits are better counted by the non-degenerative nervous system, which are to be excluded. Cognitive disturbance is better accounted for the psychiatric diagnosis. Now, episodic memory, visual disturbances are also importantly to be excluded. However, if you see a behavior variant FTD, they may get to have a pragmatic deficits in early to late advancing phases, which can sometimes be felt like the patient has even language impaired. And while diagnosing PPAs, the behavior variant PPAs and their pragmatic is not well researched. Many typical clinicians have very less time dedicated to their batteries, what they administer on different FTD patients. And that may be one important area which can be explained, that how's use of language, pragmatics important to be explored. However, language-based variant PPAs have a typical semantic impairment, phonological impairment, syntactic impairment, and obviously milder of these difficulties will cause difficulty in communication, that is pragmatics, but they do not have significant deficits on your VAB or your language based batteries if the person has a typical behavior variant of FTD. Okay, so going back to PPA, language variant of FTD, language variant of dementias, main important two fluent and non-fluent categories are to be considered in PPA. So semantic variant is also called temporal variant. So temporal variant FTD or semantic variant is a fluent variant of PPA where the person can have more deficits like difficulty in understanding, they speak a lot, don't make great sense, sometimes they don't get a correct word, so they mix, you have a word jargon, poor comprehension, whereas progressive non-fluent aphasia, PNFA, or a grammatic variant or a disfluent PPA is more that person can have a practic, a fluent, a grammatic, or paragrammatic picture, which is not so significantly non-fluent like your Broca's or transcortical motor aphasia. So that's how when many of the SLPs who have not seen cognitive neurological patients many times feel that why do you call him non-fluent? Because in the Western aphasia battery, many of non-fluent patients turn to be anomic. However, it is important to understand the articulatory agility and apractic component causing aphasia. So apractic aphasias, dysexecutive aphasias would be much better in terms of your PPAs, where the Western aphasia battery and the Boston diagnostic classification fails to encompass PPA. So these are the degenerative aphasias you have to understand. They are different from a vascular aphasia. This logopenic variant of aphasia, nor he or she will be so disfluent, nor he or she will be so poor in comprehension. And that could be a mixed PPA, a mixed variant. Usually the logopenic variants are Alzheimer's pathology, tauopathy could be seen. And this logopenic variant can be importantly mostly seen as a rapidly progressive dementia compared to the PNFA FTD or PNF or the semantic variant, which are fluent in nature. So let's see PPAs in terms of their terminology and the description. How much time have I got? Mitali, you can please remind me if I'm going slow. I have lots of slides
Yes,
to show.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So semantic dementia is, yeah, semantic dementia is characterized by loss of word meaning and the comprehension deficits, the fluent variant of PPA. Progressive non-fluent aphasia, where non-fluent agrammatic speech or paragrammatic speech is seen, the person can halt, person can have an empty speech, apraxia of speech or progressive apraxia, which is very important to be seen. Though Kith et al. Have done a lot of good work with CBD and progressive apraxia of speech. However, many of times this progressive apraxia of speech have comorbid PNFA variant, which is very difficult to be identified unless you really in detail understand them. They are CBDs, where a corticobasal syndrome picture, they have a lot of apractic errors more than the typical aphasic picture what they're giving. However, apraxia does importantly influence your naming, your reading and writing. So you get to see apractic aphasia in terms of apractic alexia, apractic agraphia, and yes, apractic allelia. It's importantly your naming. So this is important that we see typical apraxia speech is slow, abnormal prosody, distorted sounds. So make sure that you have to understand the vascular apraxias are different than the progressive aphasias, progressive apraxias. So next, logopenic aphasia, where you get to see them on a spontaneous speech and a conversation speech of a Western aphasia battery that you may rate them 5 out of 10. So not they're too fluent, nor they're too disfluent. So 5 to 6 they get rated. So characterized by slow speech, impaired syntactic comprehension and naming. However, they are not so bad with the auditory comprehension, at the same time not so disfluent as a PNFA on their sentence construction. The syntax could be preserved in early stages. So aphasic dementia, amnestic anomia, amnestic aphasia, or you could say that dissociative dementic aphasias. They are important to understand that majority of dementia patients, if their Sylvian fissure of dominant hemisphere is getting impaired, they get to see aphasia in dementia. And that has to be also seen with your memory, with your spatial skills, behavior, and the cognitive uh, other domains to be equally or asymmetrically deterred. So, person with Alzheimer's will also have aphasia in early phases, but the connected speech, the naming at confrontation naming, ADL, and the activities of daily independence, and the naming scenario, communicative functions, verbal fluency are important in terms of differential diagnosis. If the person has not been a typical PPA or language based PPA, a typical AD to start with. So aphasic dementias, yes, you get to see many other dementic syndromes. They may have aphasia with them, and that should not be considered as a PPA. PPA subtypes are agrammatic or disfluent or phonological variant, which is your PNFA. Semantic variants are fluent in nature. Logopenic PPA is more of mixed PPA where you get to see semantic and agrammatic together picture. So far we have understood that language variant of frontotemporal dementia, there are high incidence of PPA. Language variant of Alzheimer's, logopenic turns towards the Alzheimer's pathology. Language variant of subcortical dementias also come in picture. They are rapidly progressive, importantly. CBD, CBS syndromes, PSPs also can have first a language variant, and language variant of MND, PNF, MND also are important to be understanding. So the language in terms of native language, second language, third language, and how the dissolution of language at different components have to be understanding. We discussed this. So it's important that you understand the differential diagnosis while working on the dissolution of semantics. Semantic memory in semantic dementia is very, very impaired compared to the progressive non-fluent aphasia, where it is more of your expressive language which is more impaired. Logopenic will have preserved auditory comprehension at simple to two-stage commands as compared to semantic dementia, and they are well preserved on syntax on early stage, unlike of PNFs. So that would be an important understanding of logopenic. So it's important that you understand the regression of modalities of language, articulatory agility, prosodic understanding, their copying the pentagon, overlapping pentagon, cube, their spatial functions to understand. So verbal DDK, verbal fluency, semantic memory, and phonological memory tasks can help you understand the subtyping of PPAs. Yes. So quality of life in PPA regresses as the person's independence, ADL, eventually comes down with the communication level if the communication is highly used premorbidly. Give me a minute. So considering the neural plasticity, neuronal recovery, very poor neural plasticity is seen in a person with PPA because they are deteriorating, they are progressive. It's important that you still see the pathology in terms of your progressive aphasias. But while understanding the cognitive communication disorder, in India, I still feel that we have long way to go for the PPA rehabilitation, because even our stroke patients, the high commonest disorder of language, cognition, communication is also under addressed. TBI, neoplastic disorders, rapidly progressive dementia. So there is huge understanding of language, cognition, communication in terms of if the patient has aphasia, amnesia, apraxia, agnosia, and difficulty in swallowing, or this could be all in one person with cognitive communication disorder. Coming back to the PPA, I would you to understand that many of the patients with PPA will have a global deterioration asymmetrically seen. No, many of the times cognitive communication disorder with PPA do not have a paresis or hemiplegia. Okay, but it's important that you need to understand, is the patient developing a alien hand syndrome, or the patient is neglecting to use the hand. So that could be very important to be understanding. Also spatial neglect, if the right hemisphere atrophy. Pardon? Sorry. So spatial cognition is also very important. The patient is having prosopagnosia, where the patient is failing to recognize the family members, famous faces. That could be very important to understand, and the differential diagnosis. So recovery is not great with the person with aphasia, PPA. However, the pattern of deterioration also helps you understand what is changing, altering, what is merging, what different clinical picture is coming with picture. Sweet tooth is one thing which you need to understand with the patient with PPA. That person earlier did not have a great affinity for sweets, but then with FTDs, many patients they start eating sweets. They may not like chapati and bhaji, and they say no. The patient is not eating much, only दूध चपाती किंवा sweets ती जास्त खाते हैं. ज्यादा करके patient sweets मांग रहा है, chocolate छुपा रहा है, और शक्कर खा रहा है, गुड़ खा रहा है. This was not at all there in earlier the parent or the person caregiver which can be reported. So this could be understanding that cognitive behavioral subtle important deficits of frontal lobe, temporal lobe, that or parietal constructive deficits to be understanding while considering your PPA. So we have to understand the categorization of dementia while seeing the PPA. Are the cortical lesion or subcortical lesion? Are there anterior or posterior lesion? And obviously, PPA does not have a irreversible outcome. They are reversible outcome. They are irreversible in nature. And the progression of PPA and related dementia disorders, it's important to understand, are they rapidly progressing or slowly progressing? Okay. So PPA is language variant dementia. I hope you could get a fair understanding of progressive aphasias with the three variants: semantic, which is fluent, phonologic or non-fluent PNFA, and third is logopenic, which is a mixed variant that is caused by degenerative pathology. Importantly, familial, if the patient has a familial history of Alzheimer's or FTD-LD, and it could be sporadic genetic mutation can cause PPAs. So it is important that we understand the circuitries in the brain, typical left dominant Sylvian Fisher atrophy and mesial temporal lobe versus right and left together. Right is less than the left. Parietal atrophy matters a lot, and it is important to be considered with the PET scan, which is a more of functional imaging. And that is going to be giving you understanding of speech, language, verbal praxis, communicative changes, and how it is deteriorating as the patient is advancing. Okay, so what is the role of neuro-SLP in progressive aphasia? It's important that you help the patient identify. So you need to help the team of your neurologist who is intervening the person and then giving them a correct understanding of the naming, reading, writing, calculation, bilingual abilities, so that the person can get identified, well addressed, and the rehabilitation matters. So it's very important that you have to identify and help in the early diagnosis. It's always a teamwork. Praxis, cognition, communications are highly prevalent in PPAs, and the swallowing abilities also are important, prevalent. Sometimes understanding the swallowing difficulties take more time when the patient is coming and telling that okay he has difficulty in naming, and many times when the patient is looking very normal, ADL is preserved, people fail to ask them, are they having difficulty in eating, are they in between choking on the water, is the person keeping the food on the in the mouth so much time, is he able to have a sensory or the different deterioration in your phases of swallowing also are important. And later stages, yes, they do develop dysphagia, which needs to be understanding along with the cognition communication, and the communication is faded, so they don't understand how to eat safely, and that's how we need to think of enteral feeding also in a later stages in the patient. So quality of life in terms of speech, language, and communication. Okay, so seeing the scan, if this is a person with a FTD, you could see the normal MRI versus abnormal shrinking frontal lobes, temporal atrophy. That's how you could be able to see the atrophied brains. It's more of Alzheimer's scan, sorry. So you have this important lobes to understand in coronal section, frontal, and your temporal lobe and your mesial temporal lobe, which is the hippocampus, and look at the atrophy of the patient who has dementia or early or mid stage PPA. So this is the shrunken, atrophied brain of Alzheimer's patient. You could see the sulci and gyri, a widening, a atrophied brain. So it is important that you understand progressive aphasias turning into typical dementias and their language cognitive communication with lesion, with terms of differential diagnosis. Recovery is very poor, but the way they are helping get help from you with the rehabilitation in early stage really helps. And the outcome measurement with the deteriorating or progressive neurological disorder like PPA, you have to help them. You cannot restore the function, but you can help them in compensation. So you have to understand there is a team work in neurological rehabilitation, and it's always you work in a team which can help the patient and the family live much more meaningful life, much more safer life to communicate, eat, live, whatever months or the years the patient has with him. So PPA at care side, when the patient is referred to you, you need to understand, is the patient fluent? Is he understanding? Is he repeating? Is he naming? How is his ADL? Importantly, on connected speech, all of you should be having ACE, very easy, free download tool which can help you understand FTD versus AD diagnosis, and PPS can be picked up well with the ACE along with your language batteries. So have the connected speech, which is important to be at certain how the patient is describing the picture. So how she or he is understanding, narrating. Okay. So carrying out the simple commands, praxis, and then able to repeat, name, read, write in L1, L2, and L3. And importantly, later cognition and communication for adequate safe swallowing. Is the patient able to swallow? His secretions, is he keeping the food for longer time, is he developing a sweet tooth, is he having abnormal swallowing pattern, and how do we help the patient. This also can be helpful in people with PNFs and PNFA MNDs, PNFA ALS would require early rehabilitation of swallowing. Alzheimer's pathology and FTDs in later stages, yes, require very important safe swallowing techniques and the sensory, importantly, rehab. So holistic rehabilitation in terms of understanding the CDR, identity cognition examination, formal, informal understanding of speech, language, communicative functions, your trail making, Stroop task, word association task could be helpful in understanding this. And the point and repeat test, which is very important. So you ask the person to repeat and then you ask the person to point. Okay, so I may have two pictures next to me and there's a battery with the Hodges and Bach et al point and repeat test, which can help you understand the patient is able to repeat but not able to name, patient is able to name but not able to repeat, or if the patient is able to failing to recognize the picture, failing to repeat. Many of the semantic dementia patients can repeat well, but while naming, while pointing and naming, they fail. So that could be an important understanding of the patient has a semantic variant or phonological variant. You get to see in the repetition task, the patient can fumble or patient can have a practic error with the patient with the typical PNFs, and that time the repetition can be impaired. The patient can point well but cannot repeat well. So repeating at word level to phrase level to sentence level really helps. The role of SLP is to assess, to intervene, to collaborate, to prevent PPA is not possible, but sensitizing the population is very helpful. So you may be involved in advocacy role. You can go and talk to senior citizens. You can sensitize people that this is the very rare syndrome. Many patients are not picked up early. And if they have difficulty in speaking, reading, writing, naming at early stages, help them go to the neurologist, get them speech language pathologist and neuropsychological evaluation, help them with the early cognitive communication rehabilitation, and the case manager role what you'll be paying, that as the patient has a different stages to be advancing, he will require a different customized approach. And the AC, importantly, when the patient is not able to make a meaningful verbal level utterances. Okay, so it's important that you understand you have an integral role, you understand the different substrates of brain resulting into dementia when they degenerate. You need to understand the language of linguistics, knowledge of linguistic, clinical neurology, neuropsychology, and that's how it's essence that neuro SLPs are well trained. You should not be rigid that, oh, it's not my province or your province. You play an important role in understanding and helping someone communicate in a better way, safely swallow, and cognition is a key to improve communication. So cognitive linguistic, communicative, and safe swallowing. That's how one has to understand. And it's amalgamation of art and science. Okay. So I have talked about this. You need to understand the paralinguistic, extralinguistic, and memory and cognitive processes while studying the pre-morbid and post-morbid comparative history. So slowly progressive aphasias, how are their modalities? What is more preserved? What is more impaired? Are they progressive dysarthrias, apraxias, dysprosodias also in one subject? And how to go ahead. Okay. So we discussed this. So currently there are no medical pharmacological best cure intervention for PPAs. However, non-pharmacological intervention has been a best standard practice, and there are enough literature where they say that cognitive communicative behavioral intervention does work. So the study has considered that class 3 evidence-based practice from the 35 studies what they have found, and they concluded that there was a positive response for cognitive communication rehabilitation, speech language intervention, and that was more with importantly strategies, your cognitive linguistic therapy like semantic feature analysis, and your cognitive stimulating practices, SFA, space retrieval therapies. And then it is important that as the patient is progressing, we need to customize and have the patient utilize the communicative behavior more differently, more efficiently. So let's see one case. Can I have 10 more minutes or?
Yes, ma'am, it's okay.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Yes.
ma'am.
So let's see one important case. So the patient is multilingual businessman, had come to the memory clinic Bharti Hospital with mild forgetfulness, impaired task, which pre-morbidly at 68, he was never complaining, never had difficulty. He had marked verbal hesitancy since 6 to 8 months. Articulatory agility was fading with longer sentences. Simple phrases, he was having no difficulty. He had definite word retrieval deficits for the people whom he was working with, but for family members, he had no difficulty in naming their names. And the daily objects of high frequency like pen and few things he would not have trouble in naming. There was change in handwriting and my cognitive impairment in 6 to 8 months. So did you importantly understand to read, to assess, you need to understand attention is playing important role, memory, language, executive function. These are elements of cognition which should be assessed. So no history of stroke, cardiac difficulties, and he was a typical progressive language disturbances with extra pyramidal features. And he was bradyphrenic, he was mild apathetic, not responding to your levodopa is what was the history from the neurologist who had earlier treated him and had sent it to Bharti. So quick locale of his speech language cognition is communication at 5 to 6 word sentence, better at simple phrases, apractic aphasic output on the longer sentences, not maintaining longer sentences, not able to address the gathering and meeting and talking at length, dysdigokinesia, anomia, spatial neglect, intermittent hypophonic utterances were there. Okay, so this is what his naming was. For camel, he says Kaitari Firanaro. He says Tasha for the drum. He could name well the sickle and zebra, but he said Udbatti for Menbatti. डोक्यावर टाकायचं. Something to keep on the head. So crown he could not name. So Undir is Chuha or your mouse for the pig, which are the semantic paraphasic errors. Now, pal for the very well to pick up understanding of your crocodile. So these are the semantic paraphasias, and he had empty speech and he had circumlocution. This could be important that you pick up the spontaneous speech, conversation speech, on a connected speech, and importantly, your verb noun dissociation and phonemic disintegration was seen on the cookie theft picture, where he was just saying that काहीतरी तिकडे होतंय, काहीतरी होतंय, ती काहीतरी करती. And Cambridge, because of the communication where was more affected, so he had a very mild dementia with the Cambridge semantic battery is very important test, which should be able to help you understand the living and the non-living naming. And then you point, you repeat, you name, you understand what is living from non-living. We have recently developed the Indian semantic battery, and that could be reposited in the Isha and IFNR and the IN collative work. So all the professionals here would have a combined a good batteries, way to use what, and that could be helpful for you. Please stay tuned. Yeah, point repeat test revealed that he had typically difficulty in repeating, but he was able to point well, and certain times he was not able to name at all. So there was severe cognitive deficits and importantly executive functions, and his VAB was like anomicophasia. Now, it's important that you understand neurocognitive disorders with dementic syndromes, etiology, and then with his non-fluent aphasia, apraxia of speech, he was more to be like a corticobasal syndrome, which is alien hand syndrome, and the non-fluence idiomotor apraxia. So we had made a diagnosis of PNFA. So PNFA CBS, progressive non-fluent aphasia with a corticobasal syndrome. So what would we work on? Attention, memory, executive function, semantic picture analysis, bilingual task. I have consent from the patient to upload his picture and his video also. He recently expired and he was one of the volunteer which was helping me and helping many of my PPA and AD patients, and he would actually help them, tell the family that do of this, don't do that, in his fragmented way of speaking, but he was such sweet intellectual soul. Can I have 5 more minutes?
Yes, ma'am, no
I
problem.
already took extra time. So early stage, what way we can help the patients ADL and communication? We can help the patient have cognitive communication stimulation with apps possible like constant. Importantly, constant therapy is going to be good app which can help you get a planned different language components and cognitive tasks. You can have a therapy online task, you can have a task which are app based. There are different apps like Lingrafica. There are free apps which can help clinicians devise cognitive and linguistic and communicative plans, therapeutic plan for the patient. If the patient is literate, yes, you can work with the patient on the app on the computer. If not, you can have the caregiver, or you can make a plan in your own language. Visual cues, verbal cues, semantic cueing. It's important that you have do's and don'ts of communication facilitation. Don't speak very longer sentences, don't switch the sentences, don't speak very fast with the patient who has difficulty in understanding. Semantic dementias develop behavioral difficulties. They are very poor in terms of listening. They have lots of disturbances of getting compliant to the families. So it is important that why or she is behaving like that, why she is speaking in a very abnormal way which earlier she was not. So it is important that you help the patient and caregiver that understand him, accept him, and help her communicate. Do not just leave them. Do not feel that she is insane or intellectually abnormal. Her identity has to be still help preserved and respected. So SLP plays an important role in terms of cognitive, communicative, and safe feeding also. When they have abnormal food behavior, how they eat, what they eat, and if they have difficulty in eating, sometimes they gobble so much of food and they have poor regulation. That time you can help that patient's caregiver are told that give them small boluses that they don't choke and the patient does not choke and have a happy healthy meal. If the consistency is to be modified, I have seen a patient who was a typical FTD of only 1 year history. He had choked many times on khichdi and rawa kheer because family was only giving that he has some huge dementia and it's an illness, where he really loved eating kebab and he was a priest, Maulana, and then he never liked to be treated so badly. And he was really good and preserved on reading his verses. He was really good at even doing his some simple phrases he used to write, and that was something for the spiritual way. So it is important that in Indian scenario, understanding how will you understand the preserved functions versus compensatory task for the fading or deteriorating functions. Okay, so it's important that we have memory techniques and activities of daily living and independence to be facilitated. So synergistic cognitive communicative intervention can really help achieving quality of life in progressive degenerative disorders. We can't somewhere reduce the risk of dementia in terms of FTD and AD if they are familial, but obviously having your brain trained in different languages, music, art can really delay the onset of dementia. There are studies. So with cognitive reserve, you can have a healthy life. And post dementia also, you could be trying to be much healthier or meaningful life you can be led. And you can help the caregivers understand these differences when the patient is going to deteriorate over the day. So thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was really enlightening. And now I would request all the participants to just wait for like 5 minutes because we have an interesting activity today. So we have a poll. We have like 5 questions on the talk that you have just attended. So the poll questions will be displayed on your screen and it will be there for like 3 minutes. You'll have 3 minutes to answer the questions. And then thereafter, we will take the question, answer, and discussion section. So here is the poll. Okay. Okay.
If I have tried making you understand the PPI, I hope you would be able to answer well. I hope that. Yeah. Are the 5 questions answered, attempted by all? Please try. It will help me understand. It will help us understand that how helpful was the webinar for you. Should we stop and take some questions?
Yes, ma'am, it's done. Okay, 3 minutes are done. Thank you so much. And we have our responses. Ma'am, should I share the results?
Yes, yes, sure. I'll just stop sharing the slide.
Yes.
So, very good. 91% could get a correct answer. Second question was answered very well. Requires correlation. 71% could get it very good. PPA is preserved. Yeah, that's nice. 59% people answered correctly. PPA is preserved ADLs and basic memory functions for first 2 years. Is very good. I'm happy that people are able to understand, and Addenbrough cognition is going to be used now more and more with SLPs. After attending today's webinar, how confident. So I'm glad. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
What are the
everyone. And now you all can type in your questions in the chat section so ma'am can answer those questions. Let me see, ma'am, if there are already some questions. Ma'am, there's a question is how to diagnose PPA with dementia, and does dementia need to be diagnosed by a psychologist or a neuropsychologist?
very good question. So, progressive aphasia. As a SLP with a training in brain behavior and understanding of cognition communication, you're very much entitled to differential diagnose and give a report of PPA to the neurologist. So neuropsychologist with their limited understanding of language in PPA, at least if I have my understanding of working with neuropsychologists, you being SLPs are having a better understanding of communication, praxis, your special skills, and the cognition. So you are able to diagnose. However, it's always a teamwork. Do not be overconfident. You have to talk to your neurologist who has referred the patient to you. The patient is not referred to you and he's come on your own, or someone else referred to you. Get in touch with the neurologist and the referring physician or whoever has told that okay, this requires a detailed understanding and the brain scanning medical investigation. So there one can have a team of neurologist, SLP, yes, psychologist, if you have in medical clinic psychologist who is well trained in dementia and PPA. Did I give you an answer to the question?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, there's one more question asking for the PPT. If you could share your PPT with us so we can forward it.
Sure. I think we are going to have this presentation on YouTube. I don't mind. So you might be able to get the slides and the videos.
Okay. And I couldn't introduce you well. So there are certain things which you have not spoken about yourself, which I would like to add. So Sonal Chitnis ma'am is a consultant speech pathologist at the Dinanath Mangeshkar Super Speciality Charitable Hospital in Pune. She is an active volunteer of n number of organization that she mentioned. She was awarded the Young Investigator Award at the World Stroke Congress in October 2016 at Hyderabad. She has also been awarded with the Sant Kavi Surdas Award in May 2015 by Government of Mauritius. She has been coordinator in SIG Clinical Physiology, Indian Speech and Hearing Association, and she has presented so far 20 lectures and 5 publications are there, and also 25 international forums and 5 international forums presentation. Her area of interest is mainly physiology and cognitive neuroscience, neurorehabilitation, stroke, epilepsy, dementia, and much, much more. Thank you so much, ma'am. I couldn't because of this technical thing, I couldn't introduce you well, and it just happened in
Thank you
that.
so much for the great introduction and praise for me. And I hope I am able to help you in some way. And I'll be posting a lot of uh, posts regarding aphasia, dementia, epilepsy, and role of neuro SLP. So please read the Facebook page of Aphasia Association of India and my post also, and ResearchGate and certain tweeters. What I would try my best to share some material with you also. We're going to come up with a repository where Indianized, well cost cultural valid protocols for cognition communication are going to be uploaded, so you can get help with a norm and based task and tools. You would be able to get it. So I would like to have you all as a volunteer, whoever are MSc SLPs and the clinical practitioners. It would be really helpful so that you learn well, you help your professionals, you help your team, and importantly, patients, because they are to be helped well. If you don't know, you may not be able to give the correct answer, intervention, and the counseling. You may have a more dropout. So many patients who are not going to improve, if the patient is still coming to you even in the end stages, that is how you have earned for yourself that patient is being helped at different stages. So SLP's roles are very, very vast and dynamic. You will be able to help yourself if you read, if you learn, if you practice, you talk, you teach your professionals. Go and make friends. Don't be like a frog in the well. That's how I would always like to tell my fellow students, my fellow professionals. And thanks for bearing and being attentive for the talk and coming for the lecture also.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, on this opportunity, I would also like to tell everyone that World of SLP, in collaboration with Indian Speech and Hearing SIG Clinical Aphasiology, Indian Federation of Neuro Rehabilitation, and Aphasia and Stroke Association of India, and the Indian Academy of Neurology, is organizing an event which would be mainly for awareness of aphasia among the students. So the details of this has been already shared yesterday on our Instagram page, but it's mainly a e-leaflet competition that we have come up with, in which all the students, mainly the UGs and PGs, can participate. You have to make a leaflet having a theme of strategies that can facilitate communication with persons with aphasia in Indian language. So it's the time where we, combine our knowledge with our language and try to make some resources that will be really useful for all the persons with aphasia. And we can all do our bit by creating something with all our creativity and knowledge. So this competition details shall be put up on the Instagram page of World of SLP by tomorrow. And yes, ma'am, would you like to say something more on this?
Yeah, on the Facebook page and the website Aphasia Stroke Association of India, we have uploaded the workbook of aphasia, which can help you understand and work on different aphasias, be it global, Broca, Wernicke, not exactly for the type, but there are cognitive neuropsychological based intervention activities workbook is posted, and they are even coming with Marathi, Hindi is already posted, Marathi, Kannada, and Malayalam. 3 languages workbook is to be posted soon. Also, cognitive linguistic communicative manual, 2 levels we are going to post soon. So stay tuned. It would be helpful for you professionals, and also you can give the manual to your patients and the caregivers who cannot come to you, who cannot commute. With the COVID pandemic, it is very difficult for the patient who has dementia, who are at risk of developing infections. So it is important that you help them communicate, not that me, you, or nowhere, never. It is important that to be optimistic in terms of helping the person communicate better, swallow safely. So the cognition, communication, and advocacy for the brain health. I hope you all will
Thank you
take
so
this
much, ma'am.
ahead.
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely,
thank you so
ma'am.
much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah,
And
thank
it's
you.
been
Jai
one
Hind.
month of World of SLP today. Yes. So, ma'am, it's an honor that you are there today for the presentation, because it's 1 month of World of SLP, and in this 1 month we have done like a number of webinars. So Here's a short poll of 5 questions which I request all to just fill it up in 2 minutes so that we have an idea about how World of SLP is actually helping everyone. So I'm
Kudos to
putting
your
up the
work.
poll. Thank you, ma'am. Yep. Okay. So, okay, we are stopping the poll now. And yeah, wish to share the results. Oh, so by far only average at least 3 of yes webinars are attended. Thank you so much for attending them. Okay. They have been helpful and we are glad that they are being helpful in knowledge gaining as well as improving clinical practice. We'll keep working on it and keep improving. And we have like people who are agreeing to be a volunteer also. That would be great. Please follow our Instagram page and you can find all the details there. And yes, there are more activities going on apart from just the webinar. So if you follow Instagram page soon up till the time our website is on, that would be really helpful so that you all know all the updates that are going on with the world of SLP. And thank you so much for all the response. So it's the overall experience is satisfactory and excellent. Really happy with all the results. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sonal ma'am. You have really graced the occasion because we are really happy of completing 1 month. And no one could have been better guest than you because you have been the guiding force, mentoring person, like everything in one person. Thank you so much, ma'am.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my opinion, my views here. And that's what I always love to work as an advocate. And I hope at least 10 out of you would take up this and take ahead so that our India, we have a huge population who require great cognitive, communicative, safe swallowing health to be catered. So that would be helpful than just what they have done for me, what I do for my country, for my field, my fraternity. That would be helpful. So teaching, I love to teach, so I'm in my institute Bharti, who's very great team. We have a good courses of bachelor's, masters and PhD also. And Mangeshkar Hospital, Charity Hospital, we have a great state of the art neuroscience team there. And I try to teach the IN, IFNR and the Isha whenever there is a opportunity for me. So it's always a teamwork. Communicate with them, grow, learn. All the best, stay safe.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Do join us tomorrow as there's a webinar on dysphagia and head and neck cancer at 5 o'clock. Thank you so much. Looking forward to all of you all tomorrow. Bye. Bye, ma'am.
Bye.